Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Morgan. I want to welcome you to another exciting 2020 webinar. We're focusing on connecting with a 2020 design expert. You're going to hear a lot about connecting. That's what we all do together. And you all submitted a lot of questions to us. And that's what this webinar is focused on, being able to provide you answers to the things you're most interested in. One of the cool things is we had over 1,000 questions come into us. One of the tough things is we can only have time to answer probably about 10. But the nice thing is all of the questions really kind of fell into certain categories. So I'm going to be able to cover a lot of things that were really, really popular when it came to your questions. Also at the bottom of the screen, I want to point out that we are actually CEU credit eligible now. So for everybody joining, if you're an NKBA member and you're certified and you need credits, CEU credits, this is worth 0.1 CEU credits. Now, first of all, let's start off with, I'm going to read the questions. So John from Arizona, and you'll see some of the companies here as well. How do I show a step down from 4 to 6 inches, for example, the step from a kitchen into a living room or into a garage? Now, actually, the image you're looking at right now is a little bit opposite of that question in that this is a room with a step up into a section where we're going to take stairs. How do we do things like that in 2020? Let me go ahead and switch live to my 2020. So I'm going to go to Share, let you see my 2020 screen live, and you'll notice that I'm looking at a floor plan, a large room. Now this room, if we take a quick preview of it, you'll see that I have a top view of it right now where you're looking into the room and there's nothing there. Let's say that we wanted to have a step up somewhere. Maybe the kitchen is raised elevation from the rest of the room. Let's go back into our floor plan and talk about how we do that. Today you're going to see me use a feature that I use often. It's called Room, and under Architectural Elements, the Room catalog, under Architectural Elements, there's an option here called Custom Shapes. I use custom shapes for all sorts of things, and you'll see that as we're working today. You can place them on the floor or the wall. I'm going to go ahead and choose floor in this case. I'm going to drop down and choose a custom cube horizontal, drop it into this corner, let it snap into place, and right now I just have a cube. But watch. If I double click on this, I can make this a floor. Right now it's a cube. I can go in and say the width of this is going to be, let's say, 300 inches. The height is going to be 10 inches. The depth is going to be 180 inches. And if I click on another field, you'll see I have a nice flat surface now. And as with almost anything in 2020, I can go to variables, click on textures, and actually change the appearance. I can click on the color block next to that, and then go through my categories. Do I want it to be carpet or fabric or glass? I can actually make this glass if I wanted to, and you'd see through. But right now, I'm just going to make this wood. So we're going to go down to materials, flooring, wood. You'll see my selections on the right. And when I click on honey and I click OK, you'll see that it's actually changed the texture to be wood. Now you might get a slight delay because we are pushing this through to thousands of people online right now, so just give it a second to catch up as I'm working. If I come back and take a look at my floor plan, you'll notice that there's a large space here, and if I go back and take a quick look at my view, you'll see that I have a floor. I can zoom into this. Let's move down a little bit so we're inside the room, and you'll see a floor space. Let me lift up. Now I have a step up in the room. Now what's next? You want to design a kitchen on this step up. Well, if I come back to my floor plan and I go back to a catalog, let's go back to a cabinet catalog. We'll choose sample F. I'm going to go ahead and just in the search area type in B36 for base 36. I'm going to drag this cabinet over, drop it on this wall, and then I'm going to slide it into the space. You notice as I move into it, my cabinet turns red. That means there's collision. If your cabinet is bouncing off of this item, because right now it's sitting on the floor and it's bouncing off my new floor, There's a button all the way down here at the bottom. It looks like a gray box with a little red box below it. That's called collision. If you turn that off by clicking on it, you can freely slide this cabinet anywhere you want. So if I slide it back onto this floor plan, let it go, everything turns red because there's a conflict. I need to right-click on the cabinet, choose up, down, and I need to raise it 10 inches off of the floor. That way, when we go back and we look at our preview, or we look at our perspective, you'll see that I'm actually designing on this platform. Very simple, very easy to do. Now let's go ahead and close out of this for a second. So let me come back out. Let me do something a little bit different. Let me move over here, and let's take the same room. I actually have the room already designed as a duplicate. If I come back in here, and let's do the preview again. So let's tilt this down, let's zoom back up again, and let's slide over and take a look in this room. Now, as I take a look in this room, you'll notice that that platform, again, is sitting on the floor. It looks like just a step up like it does in the other room, except I have both of them using gray color at this point. Not only can you do a step up in the room, but you could do a loft or a second floor. I can right-click on this. I can choose up, down. I could type in 96 inches and click OK. And if we come back and take a look at this again, you'll see that this is now lofted 96 inches above the floor. So if I went back and took a base 36 again and dragged it over here, I'm actually going to put it halfway in between, so it's half under and half outside. If we come back and take a look again, you'll see that that cabinet's on the floor, but I have a lofted area. Now, you could go and get rails and put rails up here. You just need to raise them to 106 inches off of the floor. You have the ability to change the height of the walls. You'll notice that my ceiling's very tall here. I simply did that by double-clicking on the walls, and I made the walls 20 feet tall instead of 10. So you can do that as well. Now, one of the questions you may have is, if we do have a lofted area, whether it's a shelf or truly a second floor where we're going to put furniture and everything else up here, how do you get up there? Well, if you come back to the catalogs, you go back to the down arrow and choose the room catalog again, you'll find that under architectural elements, there's an entire category called stairs and handrails. For instance, I could go in here to post. I could actually click on a post and add a post to the top, or I could go back to handrails here and actually choose a handrail and have it expand across the landing. That allows you to do that. Very simple. Or I've noticed in a lot of the designs from our Design Inspiration Award, a more contemporary or modern look to stairs. See these 2 points right here, these 2 blocks? If I zoom in on this, these are obstacles just like, or custom shapes just like the floor. And I can modify these to be any size that I want. If we come back over here and take a look at these again, I want you to notice that I've placed 2 of these. We'll zoom in on these a little bit. I placed 2 of these in the room, and I added a wood texture, just like I did the floor before. And I can go ahead and place these and build my own stairs going up. So if I come back over and take this one, highlight it, and say duplicate, I can click right here again, slide another one over. I can right-click on it. I can say up, down, and I can raise this one up to 24. I think I did 8, 16. Let's do 24 this time. Come back and take a quick look at it, and now I have 3 stairs going up. Now we can add, supports and rails and everything else that we need, but it's a quick way to lay out your room. Now again, this shape right here is the same shape as this shape that we used for the step up in the room. Let's come back to our original screen here. And John, that was a great question. Let's move on to our next question, which has to do with ceilings. This one comes from George in Ontario. It says, how do I create cathedral ceilings, add beams and skylights to my designs? Let me show you that. This is actually one of the most popular questions we got in the over 1,000 questions sent in to us. So let's go back into our 2020. So if you would let me switch just for a moment here, let me go ahead and share again so you can see my 2020. Let's close this, and I'm going to open up a brand new drawing to give you some tips on that. So we're going to go back to File, back to Open. I'm going to go ahead and choose my ceiling presentation, and then I'm going to move this to the side. I'm going to draw something first. Now I'm going to go into walls. I'm going to draw a room because I want to explain exactly how this works. So let me move this over a little bit more. Hold on just 1 second. There we go. Now I'm going to draw a room, and I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to type in a dimension. I'm going to say 300. I'm actually going to make a room that's 300 by 300, so 300 inches by 300 inches. My next wall is going to be 150, and if you watch, I'm actually going to turn this wall so it's on the same line and type in 150 again. This is really important for determining the break or the peak in your cathedral ceiling. I'll draw the next wall. We'll say it's 300. I'll type in the second to last wall, type in 150, and then I'll point with my mouse to type in the last 150 and hit enter, and now I have a rectangle. But what I want you to remember is when I drew this, it's a square. When I drew this square, I actually stopped the top and bottom wall in the middle and added another wall. That's really important when you want to add ceilings. If I double click on this wall, you'll notice it takes me to wall properties. See right here where it says height? You may not have realized it in the last couple of updates from 2020, but there's a new feature down here called use same height for both ends. There's a check mark. That allows you to pick a starting height and an ending height for a wall. So I could say this wall starts at 96, but it ends at 144. Apply. Section number 2 actually starts right here in the middle, and it's going to go down. So I'm going to start at 144, and I'm going to end at 96. Apply. Apply saves without closing. Wall number 4. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to take the first section of the wall and say start at 96, go to 144, and apply. We'll go to the second section and say start at 144 at the peak, and let's decrease to 96. I'll click OK. Let's take a quick look at this. When we open this up, hold on just a second, you'll see that I have 2 rooms, but you'll notice that the room on the left, oops, I didn't do that last wall right. Let's go back and correct that real fast. Let me double click on that last wall. I must have typed in something wrong. So let's see, 144 end at 96. I didn't type in a 96. There we go. Now, when we come back into this and take a look again, you'll notice that my kitchen on my right is a square, whereas the one on the left actually has cathedral walls. If I zoom into it, let's say we zoom into the room and we go stand inside of that room, and I look up, you'll see that I have cathedral walls. And when I stop and let it render, you see it cleans all the lines up and gives you the view that you're looking for. Now that was pretty simple because I picked a starting and an ending point, and I basically just made a cathedral in the middle of the room. Let's do this a little bit differently this time. Let's zoom back out and let's take a look at this kitchen. You see I've already drawn one. If we come back into our perspective and I move over to this room, you'll see again it's a rather large room, 300 by 300, but I want you to notice where the break is. I actually drew the first wall only to 96 inches, not to the midway point, and then I drew all the way across to the other end. So if I double-clicked on the wall, and again, we're answering George's question about ceilings. George, if I double-click on this wall, and I click on wall group, I can change the overall ceiling height. I can make it 144. We're going to make this whole room 12 feet. I clicked apply. Now, I can go to the other walls. Section 1 starts at 144, but this is going to be a 2-story home, new construction. I'm going to start at 144 with my wall and my ceiling, but I want it to go to 240 inches. I'll hit apply. I'll go to section number 2, and I'll say this actually starts at 240, slopes down to 144. We'll go to wall number 4 and do the same exact thing. Starts at 144, goes to 240, apply. Section number 2 starts at 240, decreases to 144, apply. Now you do have the ability to make individual walls different heights, some walls shorter, and if you want to make sure that the ceilings always connect, we actually have on the second tab a feature that allows you to connect depending on the height, or to connect depending on the ceiling, or to connect or not to connect at all. These are options too. But if I come back and take a quick look at this, you'll see that this room now, see the slope on that one? It rapidly goes up and then slowly goes down on the other side. Now I can take this and even apply, let's say, a window. We can go in here and I'll choose a window. I'm just going to choose a basic window to make it quick. I'm going to click on that wall. I'm going to say, let's make the basic window 60 inches tall. We'll make it 5 feet. I'll drag this over and we'll snap it right here in the middle. We'll place a tall window here. And if I double click on this window, actually let me do that again. That's not what I meant to do. We will right click on the window and choose up down. This shows that the window starts 24 inches from the bottom of the floor. I can go in and say, let's start this 120 inches from the bottom of the floor. We'll click OK. If we come back and take a look at this now, you'll see that my window has been placed near the top of that wall. You'll also see sunlight come through and even reflections on the floors as you're working. So pretty cool when you have a lot of ability to make those changes. Just remember, when you're drawing walls, you need to pick where the line's going to be, where it's going to be at the maximum for the height of the ceiling and down again, and draw those in your original walls. Now let me answer the second part of George's question, and I'm going to take a little bit longer to work on this particular question because we did get a ton of responses when it came to ceilings. I think many of you have seen a lot of the drawings that we put out from the Inspiration Awards, a lot of the renderings, and you'll see there's a lot of really great ceilings in there. There's certainly a lot of beams in these drawings, as well as custom pieces above islands. Let me talk a little bit about how we do that. I'm going to come back here to the drag and drop screen. I'm going to go back up to the room. Remember, I keep using the feature under architectural elements called custom shape. Some of you might go in and say, well, there's beams already there. There are, but they're hollow. So when I cut them, I don't like the way they look. So what I do is I use the feature again called custom shape. I'm going to choose a floor shape for right now. I'm going to choose a horizontal cube, and I'm going to drop it right here. I'm going to double click on this and again build something new out of this gray box. These boxes are very flexible, and I'm going to show you some other cool things you can do. Width. I want to make this 201.25 inches long, okay? Height is going to be 10 inches. Its depth is going to be 10 inches. And if I go to its variables, let's say we add a texture to it. So I'll go to Variable, Texture, click on the color block, and here again are all of my different textures. I'm going to choose wood, furniture, generic, and let's scroll down. I'm just going to choose zebrano or zebra wood right now, just so we have something that shows up good on the screen. That's what I'm going to make our beam out of. Now, once I've done that, you can see it here. We've changed it. Once I've done that, I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to place it right here. Now, I can also move these up and down. My ceiling is 108 inches. My beam is 10 inches. So I'll go to up, down, and say, raise this 98 inches off the floor. I'll right-click on this one. I'll say up, down, and I'll raise it 98 inches off of the floor. And all I have to do now is drag these into place. I'll drag this over. I'll snap it in exactly where I want it to be. Snap. I'll drag this one over. I'll snap it in exactly where I want it to be. And again, you can go through and add multiple beams. I'm just going to add 2 for right now. If I come back in here and take a quick look at this, we'll give it a second to render. And let me zoom back out just a little bit here. A little bit too far. Hold on just a second. Walk back into the room. Give it a second to turn to color for you. And you will see that you have wood beams. Pretty awesome. It's pretty flexible. I can just duplicate these to go around the room. Now let's do something a little bit different. And again, they could have been at any height. If your wall was 144 and these wood beams were actually going to be 2 feet or a foot below that, you could always move them up and down to show any type of look that you want. Let me show you something else you could do. Let's change catalogs again, and let's talk about shaping and maybe putting custom soffits in or bulkheads or even pieces above your island. I'm actually going to go to the room top catalog. Now, I know that's going to sound crazy. I'm going to build a bulkhead or I'm going to build a soffit, but I'm going to use the countertop program. You'll see why I want to do this in just a second. I'm going to go to countertops, predefined. So I went room top, countertops, predefined. I'm going to choose a straight top, and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm going to drop it on the floor plan. Let me zoom in on this just a little bit. I'm going to right-click on this and edit the shape, just like you're used to always editing countertop shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and I'm going to add a line, and let's say I add 15 inches up. I'm going to right-click in between these 2 points. Do that again. Try this one first. Add a line. We'll move it 15 inches to the right. I'll come over here again. Let's take this one, and we will, there we go, and we will add a line. I'm typing in 15 on my keyboard. Now, I'm just going to make a crazy shape. This is not going to match the island, but I want you to get an idea of what we can do. I'm going to radius the end. Let's radius the end on this one. And let's take this corner, and let's radius this corner. So we'll take it, we'll radius the corner. We'll take this one, and we'll radius the same corner, making a round end here. We'll radius that corner. All right. Then we will click accept. And I'm going to double click on it just like I did the bulkhead a moment ago, or the beams. I can go in here and modify this. I can say variables, dimensions. Instead of being an 1.5-inch piece of countertop, I want it to be a 15-inch high bulkhead or soffit above my island. And then I'd like to go into textures, and I would like to go back and choose that wood texture we had just a moment ago. So let's go back to furniture, back to generic, back to Zebrano, back to glossy, and let's choose that just like we did before. I can click OK, and now I have this crazy shape that I've created. I can take this and move it anywhere I want. I can then right-click on it and say up, down. And I said my ceiling was 108. I made that 15 inches, so let's raise this 93 inches off of the floor. Let's go back and take a quick view of this. We'll give it a second to draw. And if I tilt it and roll back again, you'll see that I've built a custom-shaped feature above my island. If you look in the inspiration awards, you'll see all sorts of really great shapes on the ceiling. Many people are doing it like this, especially if you see the radiuses and the actual shaping itself. The custom shape feature that I used is rectangular. If I use the room top catalog and convert that into a soffit, I can make it any shape that I want. Awesome. So let's come back out of here. Let's close this, and let's go to our next question. And our next question is going to be from Danielle. How do I create a waterfall edge countertop? As you look at at the drawing you see right now behind you from the design contest and the inspiration awards and many others, waterfall countertops are all through these. I get a ton of questions about this. So let's go ahead and switch back over to my 2020. Let's do a waterfall countertop. So let me open up. I happen to already have prepared a drawing for a waterfall countertop. So we'll bring this up on my screen. Here's my countertop. Now, the countertop that I used right here came from the items feature countertops and trim. There's another countertop option which I use the majority of the time when I'm drawing countertops called Countertop Wizard. When I create waterfall countertops, I use countertops, tops, and trim, and I draw an island, or I draw the top just in that particular space. Now, if we take a quick look at this, okay, that's what my room looks like. So let's go ahead and tilt this. We'll move over a little bit, and I'm going to put a waterfall edge right here on the right-hand side of that countertop. So let's come back out of there. Now, here's a trick. A lot of people try to start drawing this from scratch. I don't do that. I already know how wide or how deep this countertop needs to be, this waterfall edge, because I already have a countertop here. And I already know what texture I want to have on it. If it's a solid surface, a quartz, or a granite, whatever it is. If I simply clicked on this countertop, there's a feature here called Home, which is called Copy. If I click on Copy, move down to my floor plan and right-click and choose Paste, I now have created a duplicate countertop. but I'm not trying to make another countertop. I just want to have a waterfall edge. So I double click on the countertop, just like we did for the beams. I go to variables, I go to dimensions, and instead of the countertop being 1.5 inches thick, I make it 34.5 inches thick. Big old block there. Now I go back to general, and see where it says up, down? Your countertop is normally aligned at 34.5 inches. You don't want your waterfall edge to do that. You want it to be aligned with the floor. 0. I will click OK. Now, I have one last thing to do. I need to modify the width of this. If I right-click on the countertop and I go to Edit Shape, I can left-click on this line and move it any direction that I want. I'm going to move it to the left, and you're going to look at your counter right here. See that counter right there? My countertop is 63 inches wide. I need it to be 1.5 inches. So I'm going to type in 61.5. That's going to subtract the amount of top that I need. Click OK. There's my piece of countertop. Now, if I want to put this on both sides, I can actually click on this, click on copy, click on paste, and then I'll have two. If I click on paste right now, whoops, hold on a second again. If I click copy and then click on paste, I now have two sections. All I need to do is take this, slide it into place, let it snap in, and watch what happens when I go back and view it. You'll notice that if I turn, you'll see my other countertop edge sticking out there. But watch. I've created a waterfall countertop. I will tell you that your quartz really looks good like this. Right now, I just have a solid surface. You'll see I'm going to use quartz in my next drawing. But that's a real simple way to do that. And if I wanted it to be waterfall on both sides, all I would do at this point is drag that into place and snap it in, but I'm not worried about that right now. We're just going to move on to the next feature. So let me go ahead and close out of these, and we have answered the waterfall countertop question. So let's go back to our presentation. We'll go to the next question, which comes from Maria Carolina, who's a friend of mine in South Florida. She asked to see how to play with lighting to achieve realistic results. Again, lighting. I saw that question all through all the questions that were submitted. Let's go back into our 2020 again, and let's open up a drawing. So let's just go back and open up one of the drawings that I've already opened, and let's take the beams and ceiling one. So we'll just open this back up again. And let's go ahead and open up a quick perspective. Let's talk a little bit about lighting. When you're working in lighting, you'll see that in my room there's lots of shadows, and I'm not going to do anything just yet. I want to explain what you're looking at. You'll see the louvered shades here on this wall cabinet and across the room. That's because I have sunlight outside of these louvered shades. I really need to tilt these down so that the sunlight's directed to the floor. You'll also notice that the room itself is bright. That's what we call ambient lighting. And I have, if you look at my ceiling, I have individual lights at the ceiling as well. Those are handled separately. Let's talk a little bit about what you can do lighting-wise right from the rendering itself. First of all, at the bottom of the screen, there's a light bulb. You'll notice that sunlight is automatically turned on mine, and this little sunburst right here, I can move that around to control the light in the room. Typically, I like to use sunlight, and I place things like shades and flowers and things like that to create realistic shadowing. Sometimes, though, like this room is pretty light, I might need to turn the sunlight off. It might just be too bright. But if you watch, as I move this around on my screen, it'll actually make adjustments to the sunlight. Let's go ahead and turn that off. And let's go to the next lighting option, which is ceiling light. Ceiling light is a feature that I use often when I'm trying to make a certain section of my kitchen brighter. I'll simply click on it and move it into that section. I'm actually going to do that in my next drawing. Let's come back into lighting again and talk about scene. See where it says auto lighting? If you click on the arrow here, you can make your room anywhere from off to 60 watts, and that's what all the little lights that you see along the wall automatically. If you remember when we were just looking at a room and I was putting the step-up floor in, and it had lights around the room, that's the auto lighting. If you go and put all your own lighting in, you may not need auto lighting. And if that's the case, you can simply click on this and turn it off. Now, at the very bottom, you see where it says user light. These are the lights that you placed in the room. So you can, as a group, take this and scroll it to the left and make them dimmer, scroll it to the right and make them darker, and it adjusts your lights only. And then the ambient light allows you to make the overall room brighter or darker. For instance, if you have a dark cherry kitchen, you might want to scroll those all the way to the right and make the room really bright. Or if you have a white kitchen, I recommend, and Maria, this is one of the things you were asking me, I recommend you move that further to the left and make the room a little bit darker because you already have bright white cabinets and you don't want to have too much light in that room. Now, do I do all of these things? I do not. Typically, I either use the sun or I don't, depending on how bright the room is, and I immediately go to scene and I use the ambient light to adjust it light or dark. I'm actually going to adjust this all the way down to the left, and I want you to notice that I've virtually turned out the lights in the room. Now, I'm going to add something in our next section, and I'm going to continue with lighting. So I'm actually going to put something on the countertop and put a backsplash in, and I'm going to continue with the lighting. But let me show you one thing that I would recommend to Maria. If I tilt this, let's say that we take this and actually let me move up a little bit. I'm going to tilt down a little bit, and let's move in here a little bit. You'll see right now that you can see lights along the cabinets. You can see that the room is a wee bit darker than it was, but the lights aren't totally turned off. But I want you to notice the realism in the floor. See how the light hits the floor? Look how much more realistic it is when that light is highlighting it on the left, or if you're looking at your cabinets with plates in them. You can adjust anything you want from here, but let me show you something else that you can do. If you go to the drag and drop screen, and you go back to the room furniture catalog, room FUR, there's actually a feature in room furniture called lighting. And if I choose lighting, let's say we go down to lighting here and I choose recessed light, I'm going to go ahead and pick a spotlight, drag it to my floor plan, and I'm going to place it right above my island. Now, right now, that light is at my ceiling. That's 108 inches. I'm actually going to change that. So let's come back. I'm going to right-click on this light, highlight it. I'm going to go to up, down, and I'm going to drop it down to 54 inches. Now, there's nothing above it. Typically, you would be doing that if it was underneath of a cabinet, but I want to show you the effect of the lighting. And if I take this light, I've just lowered it. If I right-click on it, highlight it, and go to its attributes, you're going to notice that this light is black. Remember before I told you to change the texture of almost anything? When I'm doing stuff like this, I like to make these invisible. I'll actually go into the light. I'll double-click on the color, and I'll do something like make it clear or make it glass. So I'll come up here and say, let's make this whole light glass by clicking on Furniture, Generic. I'm going to click on Clear Glass. Click OK. Actually, let me cheat a little bit. I'm going to copy that and do it on the next one, too. And then I'll double-click on this one. Instead of me searching for it, I'm just going to click down here, hit Control-V, browse for it, and we will click OK, and my light is now clear. Now, if we come back and take a look at this, you're going to notice now that there's a light shining directly down in a perfect circle. That light is actually right about here, but I made it clear because I made it all glass. So you can barely see it on the screen. But look at the effect here on the countertop. It's too bright. You may not know this, but this is my favorite thing to do when it comes to lighting. I go into spot recessed lights. I go into what's called light property. And when I go into light property, see where it says profile? Actually, let me make this a little bit brighter. I can actually change and say, this is the way that I want the light to shine, to diffuse the light. I'd like to define it with a diffuse light, or maybe I want it to be a real tight focused light. Or maybe I wanted something as simple as scatter. Now remember how tight and how bright that ball was of light? If I click OK on scatter and look at this, Watch the light and see how much softer it is. You'll see that you have a lot of light here, but you can see it radiating out from it, and it becomes softer on all the edges. Now, this really comes into play when you take the next step. Let me come back out of here for a second. Let's go back over to our questions, because Maria's question is going to lead me right to Sarah's question. Sarah's in Montana, and she says, I'd like to learn how to take advantage of the cloud. This is a perfect opportunity to tie these together. So let me come back out of here again. Let's share my screen. Let's click OK. Over here on the right-hand side of my screen is 2020 Cloud. If you do not have a login, simply click on it, and there's a place where you can create a login. Now, when you go to the cloud, you'll see I was last working on the bathroom and with the Kohler catalog. You'll see that there's lots and lots of catalogs listed here for appliances, for plumbing fixtures, and something called 2020. These are really accessory type items. Now, what's cool about the cloud and what the benefit is you don't have to download these. These items are always live and they're always up to date. So over here in drag and drop, if you want to use the brand new, let's say, Kohler catalog, you have to go download it so that it's here. But if you're using the new Kohler catalog by using the 2020 Cloud, you never have to look for anything new. You never have to download anything. All you have to do is click over here, click on the catalogs that are available, and when you drag and drop your product, it's the most up-to-date product. So you're never worried about having an old catalog. You're eventually going to see all of the catalogs migrate to this. One of the things you should do as soon as we're done, though, go in here and check out all the different features that are in here. For instance, if you go into the decorative items catalog here, you'll see that there's tons of things like bathroom accessories. You'll see that in my next drawing. Bedroom accessories, tables, chairs, clocks, blinds, all sorts of features that you can use to quickly make the room look like the room your client would live in. Let me scroll down real quick, though, and you'll see everything from books to magazines. You know, if I want to place this magazine right here, I can click Add. I can simply take this, drag it, drop it right in the middle. I now have a magazine on top of my countertop. I could even go in and find, let's say, flowers. If you went to my house right now, there would be roses on the countertop that I sent to celebrate my wife's birthday. So if I wanted to show her roses, I would click Add, drag this over, snap it into place. Now, watch. When I go back and check out my view, and I know that your rendering might not be quite as good as mine because we are pushing this online, but if you let this render for a second, I want you to notice the clarity when it comes to these items. Look at the glasses, look at the book. Of course, now it's re-rendering. Hold on just a second. I'm going to have to make it re-render again because it timed out. There we go. It did my autosave. You'll see that it's going to re-render, and you'll see the roses. You'll actually see the shadows of the roses on the countertop. You'll see that each pass it makes that book and those set of glasses clearer and clearer, and it eventually will look like a photograph if you give it 10 or 20 seconds. Now, I'm actually running two computers side by side, so I can see what you're looking at too. The image that I'm seeing that you're seeing is a little bit more gray than what mine is because we're pushing it through online, but I can create a photorealistic rendering by using these features. Now, let's come back out of here again. Let's go back into our questions, and let's go to our next question. So thanks, Sarah, for your question. Next question is, how do I create a custom backsplash? This comes from Kimberlyn out in Wisconsin. So let me go back into 2020 and show that as well. Let's just keep the same kitchen. I'm actually going to open up an elevation of the top wall. Now there's a feature, and I'm going to use this a number of times in a moment. There's a feature under items called surface. If you click on that, surface allows you to click everywhere that you want to change direction and define a section where you'd like to apply a texture like backsplash tile. I'll scroll down, go all the way to where I started again and right click. And again, remember, it's the surface tool. Once I look at my tile, I can click browse. It'll show me all the tiles that are available. And then I can jump over here and say user texture instead. I'm going to come back and explain this in a second. I'd like to use this gray tile. I can click OK. Click OK again. And if we go back and we take a quick look at my view, let me zoom in on this just a little bit more. So let's zoom in, and we'll tilt this just a little bit. And you'll see as it draws, you'll see that I've added that gray backsplash tile back here. And you'll see the images in front of me, from the flowers to the glasses to everything, become more and more realistic every second that it renders. You may notice that the glasses themselves have a little bit of a crooked line. Eventually that line will straighten out and it'll become photorealistic as well. So again, Kimberlyn, thanks for that question. It's the surface tool, and I'm going to use that when we work in the bathroom in just a second, so you'll actually see that in much more detail. Let's come back into our questions again, and let's go to the next question, which is going to be bath. Now, this is going to be really interesting. This comes from Sabrina in Massachusetts, and she says, I would like bathroom design tips for custom showers, tile niches or niches, depending on where you're from, and general tile design and glass. Let me come back into our 2020, and let me actually open up a bathroom. So let's go ahead and close this image. Let's go get a bathroom design, and I think you're really going to love the next section. So let's go into the bath design, click open, and we'll give it a second, and there we go. Let's open up a perspective of this bathroom. It's a fairly large bathroom. Actually, this bathroom is based off of one of my friend's homes that we remodeled a couple years ago. Has a walk-in shower, and I'm going to talk about how to add niches to the wall and so forth. But you'll notice here that as I start to do the drawing, you'll notice that in my bathroom, the tub that I'm using is actually out of the Kohler Cloud catalog. If I tilt and looked over here, you would see here's a Kohler toilet. Right here at the top is actually a Kohler, is actually a tissue holder from that catalog, vessels, sinks, decorations around the room, and I even have some louvered appliances here. The room itself isn't very spectacular just yet, but that's what we're going to do. So we can stand here, look back out, and even see the realistic towels and the warming bar for your towels too. So we have all of these accessories listed in the cloud catalog. But what the question was, I think it was Sabrina's question was, she's really interested in this. She wants to know about the shower. So let's look into the shower for a moment and take a look at what we have. I can tilt down and you can see there's a shower drain. I have some fixtures in here. But she wants to add a niche on this wall. Let me come back out of here. I'm going to open up an elevation of that wall. I'm going to drag this down, and let's zoom in on this. There is a feature under openings and obstacles which allows you to cut out sections of the wall. I can go to wall cutout. I can choose rectangular cutout, and I will click on this wall, and it's going to ask me the height, and it's going to ask me for the up-down dimension. I'm just going to say these are fine. And if I zoom up a little bit, you'll actually see this piece is above my room. I'm going to click. Actually, let me do that again. I apologize. Let me double-click. I'm going to click right here. Let me just click OK. And I'm going to lower this to here, let's say. Click on it and move. It's going to ask me how wide it is. I'm going to say 12 inches. Now, that was under the openings and obstacles. I cut a hole in the wall. To prove that I cut a hole in the wall, here's your image. There's a hole in the wall. But that's not what we really want. What we really want is to have a back to this and tile everything. So let me show you something that I would do. There's a little feature under Room, which you've already seen me use several times, called under Architectural Elements, called Custom Shape. I'm going to choose a wall custom shape. I'm going to choose Cube Vertical, drop it into place. I'm going to double click on it, but this time I'm going to say make it 12 by 12, and the depth, I want it to be 0.25 inches. We'll click OK. Actually, before I click OK, you'll see that I have just a slab here, 12 by 12. Variables, texture, I'm going to click on the Browse button. I'm going to go to my user library. I'm going to talk about this in more detail. I'm going to use this tile right here. Now, where did I get that tile? That tile I downloaded from a website. I went to a tile company's website, I right-clicked on it, I said Save As. And when I saved it, I put it into a folder on my computer. See, on my computer, I've created a folder called My Textures and Wall Tile. I save all sorts of real tiles here for use in my designs. Anytime I want to import a tile, I simply click on it and click OK, and it adds it to my library. So all you have to do is right-click on a thumbnail online, Save As, put it in a folder, and then when you come into the tile, click on the Browse button, and you can import it. Now let me choose this colorful tile. So let's pretend we're in South Florida right now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to drag it across my screen. So let's drag it over to here. We'll get it to line up on that opening. I'll right-click again, and I'll move it down so it's right on top of it. And if I close this now, and I zoom in, you're going to see that that tile is there. We need to recess this. So I'm going to right-click on it. I'm going to hit In, Out. I'm going to move this back by holding the Control and Shift key down. Let's go ahead and click on this, snap it into place. And if we go back and take another view of it, watch. I have a niche with tile behind it. But that's not what you want. You want the whole wall to be tile, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come back out of here. I'm going to double-click on this wall. I'm going to go to Material, and where it says Finish for the wall, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit Browse, User Texture, Seaside Pattern, click OK, click OK. Let's go look at it again. And that's what Sabrina wanted. Now, a couple of other things she asked about was tile in the overall room here. Well, let's take the whole shower for a second. So let's look at the shower. I'm going to pull back just a little bit. Let's turn, let's say we tilt it, look like that. I used the feature under items called Surface on the wall. You know where else you can put Surface? On the floor. If I click that, I can click here, come across to this wall, come all the way over to that wall, all the way over to that corner. Actually, yes, come all the way to this corner, all the way down, and all the way back to where I started. And when I finish, it gives me a floor pattern with a really ugly tile, but we're going to change that. We'll go to User Texture, Coastal Seaside, click OK, click OK, and when I come back and I take a look at it, there's my floor. Matter of fact, if I zoomed in, you'll even see that I have my shower drain, I have my niche on the wall, everything's there. Let's say we zoom back out, and the third question is, how do I mix tile? Maybe how do I make a border or such, let's say on that wall? Let me show you how I do that. Again, I open up an elevation. So let's double click on that screen and let's open up an elevation. There's my elevation. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go back to Items, back to Surface, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to say, I'd like to start right about, hold on just a second, we're going to move over here. So let's say we come up, and I'm going to move right to here. See, I'm just following this line. I'm going to draw all the way to this wall, click, draw all the way up, draw all the way back, and let's line this up. Click on it, move back down again, click again, right-click. I'll click on my Browse button one more time. I'll go to my textures that I've imported, and let's pick, I know these aren't going to match perfectly, but let's pick this because they're close. Now, that section has tile. So all I need to do is trace the rest of the sections. I can click here, come down, come over, go back to the top again. I'm simply clicking. When I right-click, I can now go in and add my Coastal Seaside again by clicking on User Texture. And then I can come back one last time and say, oops, I didn't line it up. I apologize. I messed up just a little bit. I would normally go back and redo that, but for right now I'm not going to. So we're going to come back in here again. Let's say we click on it, click over here, down, over, again, cross back over, and we'll add Coastal Seaside one last time. Click on it, bam. Let's come back in and take a look at it. I've tiled the shower. I didn't tile the other walls, but I can always go back and do those. But I've added that. I've added a border. I have a floor. I have my realistic towels on the right. And if you look straight ahead, I have my niche in the back. Make this as realistic you want, including all of the controls. Cool. So let's come back out of here. I'm finding more and more, oops, sorry about that. I'm finding more and more questions when it comes to bathrooms. I was with a dealer the other day, and he told me, John, I'm doing 10 times or 10 bathrooms to every kitchen, and he's been asking me some great questions as well. So Sabrina from Massachusetts, thank you very much. Marla from Illinois, how do we get white kitchens to render well? Awesome question. That's another one I get because we all know right now it seems like all we're doing is selling white kitchens. So let me come back out of here and let me show you a little trick that I use. I am going to show you how I pick my colors when it comes to white. If I click at the top of the screen and I come down, instead of going to the cabinet manufacturer's catalogs, most of you go to items and you'll go to styles and pricing or GSV to pick colors. I actually pick colors from the floor plan. I right-click in the middle of the floor plan, and I go to what's called Global Attributes. When I go to Global Attributes, I click on the catalog, and just like I've been supplying tile, if I double-click right here, you'll actually see that I'm in the Sherwin-Williams catalog. So I can go up here and pick Alabaster, and that's the white that I'm going to use. And I can scroll through and find different varieties of whites and colors right from the catalog. Well, if you really, really want something that's just a bright white, go to the generic paint catalog. Choose white. Choose whatever, if you want it flat, eggshell, semi-gloss, whatever it's going to be. And you'll notice that there's some bright whites in here. There's two whites on the right-hand side. There's one here called white gloss, and there's one here just called white. But if I click on that and click OK, what I would do is double-click right here where it gives the code and hit Control-C. You now have the ability, instead of having this off-white, you have the ability to come down here into the search, click on Control-V and hit Browse, and actually change all these whites to be a bright white. Now, you're not going to see a huge difference on my screen because what I'm publishing to you is not quite as high res as what we see on my actual monitor. But if you go through and hit Control-V and hit Browse for each one of these, you can replace all of these whites with a bright white. I just have one more to go. We'll click OK one last time, click OK again. And if I go back into my rendering, you'll see as it starts to render that my room is a much brighter white than what you were looking at a moment ago. Now, my walls are gray-blue, so you're getting a lot of reflection from those. But again, you have the ability to go in and make that type of change. So great question. Let me come back out of here. Let's go back over to our questions. My next question is going to come from Julie in Missouri. Julie wants to know a great way to get really good elevations. And let me show you what Julie's talking about here. Right now, if I opened up an elevation of this wall, and hold on just a second, when I changed my countertops, let's go ahead and revalidate these. When I changed the colors and everything, it's asking me a question about my countertops, so I just revalidated. So let's go ahead and let's open up this elevation. Julie wants to go in and have more details on this elevation, so it's something she can show her client. If you go to File, there's an option here under Preferences, and if you click on Preferences, you go to Work Area, there's an option right here that's called 3D Shapes and Elevation. Julie, watch what happens when I click on this. When I click on it and click Apply, my elevation becomes 3D and now has all the door styles, hardware, as well as your coding on it. And you could, of course, manipulate dimensions to be any color, any font that you want. So again, just go to File, Preferences, Work Area, and go ahead and put a check mark next to 3D. I'm actually going to not do that for right now. I'm going to go ahead and leave that off, and we'll come back in here. Let's go back. We just have a couple more quick questions, and we are done. I see we're at the top of the hour, but we did start 1 minute late, so I have just two more things to do. James in Washington has probably the most frequently asked question that I get from people that have used 2020 for years. James really liked, it says, is directional perspective viewing coming back like in version 9? James really liked to use the camera with the camera angles and be able to adjust that. It's not only coming back, it's already in your 2020. We added this back probably a year and a half ago into one of the version 10s. At the very bottom of the screen, see there's something called Show Hide Camera? If you click on this, this will allow you to move the camera anywhere you want. If you hold your button down on a little circle, you can rotate it any direction you want. And, let me move this back again. If you right-click on it, you can even change the camera height and the tilt or the angle of the camera. And for those of you that used to love the clipping feature, if you hold your mouse right on the front line, the clipping line is still there as well. It's actually always on your computer. You just need to activate it, and you do that by clicking on the arrow, and that camera will reactivate for you. Awesome. So let's come back out of here again. Let's go back into my view. Actually, I apologize. I didn't share my view where that was. Down here in the lower right-hand corner, I apologize. They have me, I'm like juggling three things here. Sometimes I'll forget to hit the view. Down here at the bottom, it's this camera right here. So if I click on the camera at the lower right-hand corner, it's right here where my mouse is. You click on that, and that's what activates the camera. You right-click on it, and then you can modify this any way that you want. So awesome. So sorry about that. Let's go ahead and zoom back in here again. Let's go over to the next slide, which is going to be, is it possible to make notations on your screen, on a perspective? This comes from Patty in Alberta. Absolutely, Patty. Let me do this, and I have one more thing, and we are wrapped up. Let me go ahead and switch back to my 2020 again. Awesome. So Patty wants to take a perspective. She wants to go in and do a perspective view. So let's say we do a perspective. Here's my perspective, and she wants to make notes on the perspective. At the top of your screen under presentation is a feature called Drawing Layout. If I click on Drawing Layout, I can click on a template, and I always click on template number 1, which is just a blank piece of paper. You can click on different templates, but template number 1 is a blank piece of paper. And if you click on this, it's going to create a blank piece of paper that you can now edit and add things to. For instance, if I right-click on the screen, see where it says Named Views? I can actually go in here and say select the last perspective that I looked at, and if we give it a second, it actually puts this perspective on that piece of paper. So there you go. And at the top of the screen, you can go to Annotations, you can go to Notes, you can click, you can type whatever you want your note to be. You can even change the size of the note, the fonts of the notes. You can move it anywhere you want on the screen. You could actually come over here and draw lines and arrows and whatever else you want on the screen. And when you're done, you can just go ahead and print it out. So again, how did I get to that? While I was in this menu, I simply went to Presentation, clicked on Drawing Layout, and I picked the first template and simply said to take my last drawing and paste it there. What's cool about this is it's dynamic. That means that if you go to make a change, the picture will change too. So whatever you do on your floor plan will automatically always update that screen too. So it's a very, very useful tool. I use it all the time. So again, Patty, thanks for your question. And I have one last question, and this comes from Janice all the way in Alaska. And I picked it because you started with my name, Janice. You said, John Morgan, what is your personal favorite tech device to be used in the presentation and close of a sale other than 2020? Well, I'm actually going to pick something that's related to 2020, but I will tell you my favorite tool to use in a sale is actually the customer's phone. You should be, when you're working in 2020, you should be going to your perspectives, and you should always be going in and opening up a perspective. Let's say you have a perspective, and going to the 360 panoramic view button and actually saving their images in a cloud in 360. That way, your client can look at their own cell phone, and you can hand them either a cardboard box or what I recommend everybody do, and I've done this, I've gone to the local Costco and I've bought some goggles that fit large phones that are meant to be used for virtual reality. They cost $25. And then when I show somebody a kitchen, what I do is I send them an image of the kitchen as a 360. They can put their phone into these goggles and actually turn their heads, look up and down, right and left, and it's a virtual reality environment for $25. So again, my favorite, I think it was Janice, my favorite technology to use to close a sale outside of 2020 is your customer's cell phone. Just make sure that you go out and get a set of goggles. There's 50 million types of these goggles. Just make sure they fit the large format phones, your Samsung and your iPhone, and it'll cost you $25 to show them their rooms in virtual reality. Nothing better than that today. This has truly been a game changer in a lot of our markets. Now, to wrap things up, I just want to make sure everybody who's joined us today is part of our 2020 community at www.2020spaces.com/community. We are going to be sending you a link to this latest webinar, and if you join the community, you'll get more communications from us about previous webinars, links, other things that we're doing, and it's also a wonderful place for all of us. Remember I told you that 4,000 plus designers signed up today? 4,000 plus? This is a great way for not only you to learn from me and other people at 2020, but to actually learn from each other as well. So make sure you join 2020spaces.com at our community at www.2020spaces.com/community. So I'm going to thank you all for joining us. Our relationship with you and what we do with you is very meaningful to us. And our number one goal is to always help you be better at your job, because at the end of the day, if we can help you be better, that means your company's going to do better, and we know at the end of the day that your customers are going to end up with better spaces, the spaces where they're going to spend their lives in and get what I call ROE, return on enjoyment.